is now called to order for Thursday, June 20th, 2024, and we'll go right into roll call. Will we? Yeah. Roll call slide. Oh, is that still not working? Okay.
Doing something else. Take it at a time.
Okay, here we go.
Phil Block.
Carolyn Watson.
Cindy Rogan.
Monica Webster.
Jay Norris.
Kelly Aramaki.
Okay. Next, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. I'm guessing we don't have a student? All right. All right, so everybody just please stand up and I will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. This is new. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. All right, now we have the land acknowledgement, and I will just, in lieu of having a student, which we like, but it's their vacation, I'll read the land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we are in the indigenous land of the Coast Salish peoples who have reserved treaty rights to this land, specifically the Duwamish and Snoqualmie tribes. We thank these caretakers of this land who have lived and continue to live here since time immemorial. We reflect on the historic context that brings us to reside on this land and accept responsibility to interrupt erasure. We commit to an ongoing partnership with the Snoqualmie tribe as we listen to, learn from, and lead with their guidance. Okay, and next we're going to have the acknowledgements. Okay, here they come. So this month is LGBTQ Pride Month, National Caribbean American Heritage Month. June 19th, which was yesterday, was Juneteenth, and June 28th will be Pride Day. We left off June 14th, Flag Day. All right, I must be in a punchy mood tonight. Okay, let's see if I can have a motion to approve the agenda.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, I don't see any room for nay, so it passes. So now we're going to go into the consent agenda. So could I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Second, all right. All those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, that passes. So now we're going to go into the superintendent update.
Great, thanks, President Watson. Just a few updates today. This is our final board meeting for the school year. So much to celebrate. If you take a look up the screen, that we had a art exhibition towards the end of the year. And this is a picture of Spencer at Newport High School with his teacher, Jennifer Bitter. And it's the art that our kids are doing is so remarkable. And so this was the best of show 3D artwork. But what Spencer did it's basically AP art capstone class or whatever. Spencer researched like famous trans figures throughout history and across cultures. And then from that history, created art to represent each one of them. And so this one is of a Native American trans person from a tribe in New Mexico. And they researched the clothing, they created their own loom to weave the mat that the person is on because the person is famous for weaving and things like that, built on a ceramic house that is in the style of New Mexico, the adobes, and it's just unbelievable. I'll just say that the artwork that's happening in our schools, and for Pride Month, I thought it would be great to just highlight the work of our students and the teachers that support them. Next slide. We had the Bellevue Council PTSA Awards ceremony this past week. A number of school board directors were there. Thank you for coming. And it was just a great celebration of the amazing things that our students are doing, as well as our parents and community members. And so this is a picture of some of the big picture kids who received awards that evening. And I'm just thankful for the Bellevue Council PTSA for their partnership. Next slide. This is just kind of a snapshot. You can see more of these pictures online in our social media, on Facebook and on Instagram. But basically, I mean, graduations this year were just so spectacular. They went so well. Our kids were so incredibly celebrated for their accomplishments. And it's an incredible group of kids because freshman year, they were virtual. Sophomore year, they were back but wearing masks. And then their junior year was then going from that into AP classes, IB classes, and then graduating this year. I mean, they have been through so much. And it's an incredible generation of students. And we're very, very proud of them. Next slide. And this is my last slide, but it's basically, I just wanted to kind of signal some coming attractions for 24-25. This is not a comprehensive list, but I thought I'd just let folks know there's big things on the horizon in the Bellevue School District. As much as we have to celebrate, there's a lot of things that we're looking forward to. The first one is we're launching a new strategic plan this coming year. We're going to be building human-centered systems, which I'm going to be talking about more in the future, but basically kind of elevating humanity and relationship in all of the systems work that we're doing in the district. We're going to be talking a lot about this idea of a multilingual ecology, where every space we celebrate the multilingualism of our community, and that we offer programs and instruction to teach kids how to speak languages of their own heritage, but then also of the heritage of their friends and neighbors. We're going to be talking a lot about inclusion and accessibility, and so really bringing students with disabilities into the center. We're going to build on this idea of the beloved community, a community where people care about each other and where there's no hunger, poverty, or hatred. We're going to be talking a lot about how we improve engagement of our students in classes. And then the last thing is we'll be talking a lot more about the pedagogy of equity. And so our teachers are going to be working on a new Danielson framework, which really centers racial equity in the work of teaching and learning. The next thing I'll talk about is there's some big rocks that we're going to be focusing on at the different levels, starting with joy and innovation in preschool. We're expanding our pre-K programs. We're opening more bilingual programs, preschool programs in our schools. We're going to continue to partner with Kids Quest in order to give field trips to our preschool kids, but we want Bellevue School District preschools to be the best in the region. That's happening at pre-K. We are implementing a new K-5 literacy curriculum, which you approved last time. We're very excited about that. Middle school is going to be working on the work of reimagining around project-based learning and starting to look at the possibility of doing advisories to build community at the middle school level. And then at the high school, we'll be focusing a lot on equitable grading this coming year. I'm planning to partner with the council, PTSA, and Bellevue Schools Foundation to do a book study this coming year around the anxious generation. There's a lot of news articles right now about the impact of cell phones and of social media, and that's what this book is all about. And so a lot of our schools are piloting it. We're hearing about other school districts, but Bellevue's also piloting kind of cell phone procedures where kids have to put them away during class. But I would love to ground this in research and what people are finding about the impact of social media on children. We're going to be talking a lot about environmental sustainability and the power of student leadership this coming year. And then the last thing is we have big work to do around advocating for fully funding public education next year. And so Trevor Green, the superintendent in Yakima, and I are working with the UW to host about 12 superintendents on July 1st and 2nd. We're going to be meeting together from around the state. Everyone's convening here at the University of Washington to talk about public education funding and to try to come up with some solutions that would support all of our districts, urban, suburban, rural, large and small. And so we'll be doing that, but I know the PTSA is working on advocacy, our BEA is working on advocacy, and our board, of course, is working on advocacy. So this coming year is a long session in the legislature, and we're going to make a dent in public education funding. So a lot of great things next year. This year was really amazing in so many ways, and we're looking forward to an even better year next year. That's it.
Okay, thank you. So now we're going to go on to public comments. Do we have any public comments? We do.
I believe we have one online, President Watson.
Okay, I'm going to just do my paraphrase of the guidelines. So if everyone would please read the guidelines, but I'd just like to call out that we like civility here at the Bellevue School Board. So let's refrain from comments that are libelous, slanderous, invade privacy, are obscene or indecent, that violate the school district policy on harassment, intimidation, and bullying or discrimination, incite an unlawful act, or create a material and substantial disruption of the orderly operation of the board meeting. And then we do have to limit people's speaking time. So with that said, let's go to the comment.
Sophie Park is our one registered public commenter. George, do you have Sophie online?
I do. Sophie, you should be enabled, your camera and your microphone. So whenever you are ready, go ahead, please.
Okay, hi everyone. Sorry, I only have 2 minutes, so I guess I'll just get into it. My name's Sophie. I'm a community member. Can everyone hear me? Sorry.
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. I would like to talk about the 14-year-old student at Tillicum Middle School who waved his kufiya on stage at his 8th grade graduation. At the celebration following the ceremony, which was at school, the student's hand was non-consensually grabbed by Principal Dusty Steer. The student then broke free, asserting, "Don't touch me, don't touch me." He was given a verbal suspension notice and was also asked to leave the celebration, specifically for waving the kufiya on stage. The suspension seems to now be retracted or otherwise ignored. One of the student's friends posted on their Instagram story, quote, "To put your hands on a child and suspend him from the 2 singular hours that we are to attend school tomorrow is petty and disgusting. Watching my friend cry and feel like he has to apologize for saying Free Palestine is honestly horrible and gross. Oh, and goes against everything that was said today in the assembly." The student did not display anything related to Israel. He did not target any specific person or group. He waved a cultural garment with olive leaves and trade routes on it that represents liberation and peace because he cares about the innocent people being mass murdered in collaboration with his own country. And the I reviewed the symbolic freedom of expression policy for the district, and I reviewed the Tillicum dress code, and none of these things were violated by the student. I and many others believe that the appropriate course of action is that any formal disciplinary action be removed from the student's record, that Bellevue School District pass a policy explicitly allowing kufiyas and solidarity with Palestine as protected under the First Amendment and as reinforced by your own district's rights and responsibilities, and that Bellevue School District take appropriate action against Principal Dusty Steer for laying his hands on the student and for violating his school's disciplinary processes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Seeing as there's no other public commenters, we're going to go on into board business. Okay. So the first item of board business is an approval of collective bargaining agreement for certified administrators. Okay, so do we have someone to speak to that? Yeah.
Yes, I'm going to turn it over to Jeff Thomas, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources.
Thank you, Dr. Aramaki, Ms. Watson, members of the board. It is my pleasure to introduce 2 action items today for the board, and that is the approval of the collective bargaining agreements for our certified administrators and our AISP classified unit. I want to give a quick overview of bargaining this year because I think it's helpful for us to understand the context. And we start with the importance of attracting and retaining quality employees in a time where we have limited resources and we have budget constraints. And I think that's really important because we have to have the highest quality of employees and leaders to continue to do the work on behalf of our kids in spite of these other challenges. The district has maintained positive labor relations with our employee groups for many, many years, and that has been something that we have deliberately cultivated over time by using interest-based strategies. This is a collaborative approach to collective bargaining, and both of these contracts have been bargained using interest-based strategies. In addition, since 2014, Bellevue has utilized a market-based approach to compensation for all of our employees. This market-based approach is about keeping a sound, reasonable, and competitive salary and benefit package to attract and retain high-quality employees. Our competitive districts that we use for these benchmarks include Edmonds, Everett, Issaquah, Kent, Lake Washington, North Shore, Puyallup, and Renton school districts, all of whom are competitive districts that we all look to hire employees from. The market approach BSD has used is committing to being in the top third of these comparison districts, knowing full well we can't always be the top, but we also don't want to be below that top three. So our goal is to always try and land somewhere in the top third. And even with tight resources, the cost of living challenges, inflation, it is critical to maintain salaries that are competitive to attract and retain employees. Salary increases are accounted for when we do our budget planning, and in the situation with both of these contracts, we stayed within our projections for those increases. The second and third years of these collective bargaining agreements are open for adjustment based upon inflation funding provided by the legislature, again, staying within the parameters. And then finally, we also got creative and looked at how we are spending some of our current resources, for example, professional development funds that had been underutilized, and we retooled and repurposed those funds to help pay for the compensation packages. And at this point, I would like to introduce Kathy Elder, who serves as president of PAC-B, the Principal and Administrative Collaborative Bellevue, is also the principal at Somerset, and served as our lead negotiator on behalf of our administrators. Kathy?
Thank you. I just wanted to reiterate a few of the things that I heard Dr. Thomas share. We did use the interest-based strategies approach for this bargain, and I felt that as a team, we were heard and listened to some of the challenges and needs of our group. We were able to get creative as a team on how we could look at that. And really, what you're looking at is how do we continue to attract the best in the area and then retain them once we have them. And being competitive in that market was a really important part for many of our administrators as they were looking at opportunities both within our district and outside of our district. There was also a lot of things that don't actually show up in the contract, but allow us to continue that positive relationship that we have with our executive team and some of the needs to help with the workload that we have in supporting our principals, assistant principals, and then our directors at the district level. So thank you for looking at it, and we appreciate your support moving forward.
Thank you, Kathy. And with that, we would recommend that the board adopt the 3-year collective bargaining agreement for our certified administrators.
Okay, so now I would need a motion for the approval of the collective bargaining agreement for certified administrators. We're going to do these one by one. There's 2 on here.
I move to approve the collective bargaining agreement for certified administrators.
Second.
All right, thank you. Now, we may or may not need discussion, but I'm going to allow for a little bit of discussion and start. My little die came up with 1, which is Phil. He knows he's 1.
Yeah, one is always the most challenging spot to be in. First of all, kudos to you guys, both sides. It's great to see you coming together and presenting this to us in a timely manner and within the parameters that were expected. Really appreciate that. And I want to express deep appreciation for the building leadership at each of the schools. I know that that's a critical role that all of our families look to. Everybody, you hear about teachers, you hear about principals, and the building leadership matters, and having excellence at that level is really important. As a general comment, I know that during the budget constraints at the earlier this year, and we'll come back to those when we come to approve a budget in a little bit, there were some concerns about the relative proportion of budget that goes to administrative staff within the district, and especially as they tried to compare that to other districts. It's not about how much the individuals are compensated, but it's about how our staffing model. The other thing is I keep trying to come up with the right analogy for how the current state funding model has shifted a little bit underneath districts like Bellevue. And I like watching sports, and one of the things that resonates for me is how some sports leagues have a salary cap and some don't. And for years, we were essentially the equivalent of the New York Yankees playing in Major League Baseball, which doesn't have a salary cap. And some of the rural districts were more like the Pittsburgh Pirates or the Florida Marlins, where they had very small budgets. And they kept saying, well, we can't afford the talent. It keeps getting sucked up by these big districts. I feel like the shift in funding has made it more like we're in a salary cap environment, and where we're expected to be more evened across all of the state. And that will create challenges in districts that have historically said, well, we're going to be at this higher level because we're in a higher cost of living area, and we're in an area where we need to compete against other entities that are trying to hire our good staff, and because we have to recruit staff who may need to travel to come into our district because they can't afford the cost of living here. And I just want to recognize that's going to be an issue as we keep moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, as Director 2, I'll go next. I just wanted to mention a few things for the public who may be listening, who I don't see many of them listening, but who knows. I want to call out this interest-based bargaining technique, which was introduced to our district under Dr. Tim Mills. He brought that with us. But before that, I think we used to have sort of an adversarial bargaining that maybe didn't go as well. So I really like this technique. I feel like you could use it in daily life when you're trying to agree with others on something. You put your underlying interests out kind of in the center of the table, and then figure out how you can work with that to come to some kind of agreement. So I just love this model. And then I also wanted to assure people that the board has exercised some oversight over this process, in the sense that we delegate this to the superintendent and his team, his negotiating team. But we also are able, under the law, to have closed, kind of, you don't hear it, executive sessions on bargaining, which if you can see why the law says that, because if we were talking about bargaining things in public, it could really mess up the bargaining. But we did get to go over some of these things with the people from the district team. And so I think we're at a point, I can't speak for the rest of the board, but I think we were able to ask a lot of questions and get things answered in our oversight role. So I will pass on to Director Rogan.
Thank you, President Watson. Yeah, I think there is something really pure about the collective bargaining process in Bellevue. This interest-based bargaining is powerful. And to hear Kathy Elder say right out of the gate, we felt heard, and to hear Dr. Thomas's description of the process too, it just is very heartening to have that sense of community be at that level, that deep level of collective bargaining. So congratulations, everybody. It sounds like it was a great process. Thanks.
Microphone is off. Director Webster.
Okay, so kudos to you all, and thank you so much, Jeff, for leading this work, and thank you, Ms. Elders, for your comments as well. I think that it was really important to hear from you, so thank you so much. I actually want to talk a little bit about the need to maintain a positive work environment. And I think that's what you all have demonstrated here today. Just with you talking about some of the other supports that are in place that are not reflected in the contract. I mean, I think that building real relationship is really important. And that's what it seems like has happened throughout this process. And I'm just really proud of you. Thank you.
Okay, I think it's my turn, so I'll go ahead. I would say thank you to both sides of the team to working through this process so collegially and but more importantly, keeping our community and the challenges we have at the center and negotiating to make sure that everyone walks away feeling like not just heard, but feeling like they're part of the team. I appreciate that, especially when we're constantly trying to figure out what is next year going to look like, and with the shortfalls of budget and all that, not just our district, but across the state. I sincerely appreciate keeping all of that in perspective as you were bargaining. So thank you.
Okay, so now all in favor of approving the motion for the approval of collective bargaining agreement of certified administrators, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion passes. And now we're going to go on to, I'll go ahead and do it since I can actually make a motion myself. I'll move that we approve the AISP collective bargaining agreement.
Second.
And we
President-
have a second?
President Watson,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I think Dr. Thomas intended to have somebody else speak to the AISP contract.
Okay, we can have the motion, then he can speak.
That's true. Thank you.
Yeah.
Right.
Sure. Okay.
Okay,
So
we've
we
got
had the motion, we had the second, the motion is out there. We can all speak to it now.
Great.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. The next group with their collective bargaining agreement is Administrative and Instructional Support Personnel, AISP. It is our second largest employee group that represents just over 700 employees. And it is my pleasure to introduce our leaders tonight that are here: Michelle King, Tori Gower, and Jackie Wheeler. And Jackie, I believe you're going to take a minute to share your thoughts with the board. This is the fourth negotiations that I've done with this leadership team, and every time we do negotiations, we get better.
So thank you for this opportunity. I am the SEIU 925 AISP chapter president. Before I forget, I want to, since we were talking about fully funding education, SEIU is a preschool, in-house childcare all the way up to the university union. We have over 5,000 K-12 employees in our union in this state, and over 17,000 statewide, not just education, but we also have like 6,000, maybe 7,000 UW employees. So it's very education oriented, and we go to lobby day every year. So Michelle King and I and one of our district behavior techs, Janine Takis, went to lobby day this year. I think there were BEA reps there. There were our WEA and a lot of other local unions. So we would love to partner with you because we do that work all the time. We visited all of our, the 41st, 45th, 48th, and then so many of our people live outside of Bellevue. So some of those far-reaching districts to lobby for fully funding education. And since I work in, both Michelle and I work in special education, Tori's our AP secretary at Interlake, we know how that funding or lack of funding excuse me, impacts our programs. And we are the black hole. And unfortunately, we're always in need. So I just want to put that on before I go to my other remarks. I feel the same way. All my notes are about this is my 30th year in BSD as a para. I have been on the bargaining team for every bargaining since 1994. In my distant past, I was a lawyer. And I saw an injustice and said, I will be on every bargaining committee I can get on. So there were some that were okay, some that were very disrespectful and horrible and very adversarial. And then, as mentioned, when Dr. Mills came, it was like the sunshine came out, and it was all mutual respect and collaboration. And I think, Shamari, you were part of the initial training, and Tori and I both were part of the 36 staff members, all different positions in the district, who were trained for 3 days on team building and treating each other equally and how to do IBS. So when Jeff came on board, we were relieved because it was like, yes, we want this. We've done this system before. We want to keep doing the system. He was very used to it and bought into it completely. So it has been a very good experience. I have to say that this time it was the best ever, as I think Jeff mentioned. We had 9 people and 10 counting our organizer, which made Jeff kind of, it's a lot of people, Jackie. And I said, I know, but 6 of them were returning from the last bargaining, so they had already gone through it. They knew the system. That made it a lot easier. And I had 3 openings to fill, and I wanted to put people in positions that had some hot issues going on. So I put Brenda Manuhanu, who is a lead preschool teacher at Lake Hills, and I put Gabby Orlano, who is one of the ECAP, or they've changed the name, but ECAP family engagement specialists on the committee. And I put Holly, and I'm trying to go last, Westerberg, who's the office manager at Clyde Hill, on the committee, because those 3 groups had issues that we wanted to deal with in bargaining. And Jeff quickly decided this was not a bad thing. I told him, I don't know those 3 that well, but I think they'll be really good. And by the end of the very first day, we were like this. The BSD side had 6 people, including Jeff and Melissa and Heather Edlund, Kathy Lolly-Lever, Danielle Edwards. I don't know if am I forgetting anybody, Jeff? I don't know if you heard me. Trying to think of your team, the 6 people. But we were like old friends. We were so collaborative and so respectful. And it was, the words I wrote were collaborative, focused, creative, respectful of each other. Everybody participated. We had 9 full days, and there was even laughter. So I even said during our meetings, Dr. Aramaki, we found joy. And we were kind of like our own little beloved community, because it was just, everybody was trying to do what you were talking about, that we focused on valuing our employees, ensuring internal equity, providing meaningful training and opportunities for advancement and growth, and empowering our employees to best support our students in every program and every school. And that's, I think all of us are committed to that same thing. So we did, I don't know if Jeff didn't go over the wage part of it, but we did, well, you did mention we repurposed funds because, of course, number 1 on our survey to our employees was wages. Most of our people don't live in Bellevue. They can't afford to live in Bellevue. People are driving from Tacoma, from up far north. It's very difficult for them, but they do it and they love Bellevue. So they keep coming back and they love the kids. So we put as much as we could from those funds into the first year, which we pointed out is the best time to get it, because then you have the first year and you don't lose it the second year, and you get a little bit more and a little bit in the third year. And we also, Jeff added 3 extra PD days for those of us who are less than 190 days. Mainly the paraeducators, maybe GSAs, early learning. So that added to our training opportunities. We have mandatory training for paras that OSPI has required for new employees. And we have other right response, first aid, CPR, all of those sorts of things. Talking about creative, I have to smile because at the very end on our 9th day, we were wrapping things up and we covered all kinds of of concerns and topics and reclassed 2 groups, the department managers and those, the people who were the ECAP, family engagement specialists. They were reclassed because they needed it, and the ECAP people had been started and then kind of faded because the person who was in charge and pushing it left. So that was an equity issue, and we tried to maintain internal equity at all times, looking at our wage schedule and making sure we were in the top third or as close to it as we could get. So that was all good, but the one that was really fun is on the last day, Julia Taylor, who is one of our amazing district behavior techs, said, Melissa, you're so good and so creative at finding a little something extra for us. And she said, to honor the paras and the GSAs who's on their feet all day with the kids, you know, going all over creation and maybe out in the rain and the mud and doing, you know, the playground work and the crossing guard and all that sort of thing. How about a shoe stipend? And she kind of smiled and she said, I could probably do that. You know, yeah, I could do that, $100 a year for the 3 years. And then Jeff kind of smiled and he said, you know, shoes are really expensive now. Maybe we should go to 150. And she said, yeah, we could do that. And then Brenda, who was sitting next to me, said, could early learning get into this too? And she kind of did some calculating and she said, yeah, I think we could cover the preschool lead teacher, assistant teacher, and the special needs assistants. So everybody, I mean, my last day or two at Interlake with my crew, I kept hearing people going, I can buy a new pair of Hokas. And then somebody was looking and they go, I have a hole in my shoe. I'll be able to get new shoes. We're very excited. So I think it was one of those kind of small but very meaningful things that made people feel valued, which is a lot of what it's not just the money. People want to know that we are cared for.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, so I'm the next in the sequence of board directors, so I'll just comment that the shoe thing made me smile.
Yeah.
I have to say that.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is, let's see, I think I've made most of the comments I wanted to make regarding bargaining, but the thing that I'm noticing now is I think this is the first time I've heard from people on the other side of the table. I've been through bargaining before, and I've always heard from like Jeff's team. So this is interesting. Let me pass it on to Director Rogan.
I was just thinking the same thing. It's that symbolism of that feeling like there's this collective community here. 2 things that you said, Jackie, that really struck me is joy. You felt joy and you felt valued. And that just really resonated in the success, I think. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I won't repeat what they've said, but a shoe thing did make me smile as well. And I'm glad that we were able to provide those for the staff. Thank you.
The small things matter.
Yep.
And it sounds like all those things were addressed. And I appreciate everyone working so closely together and feeling like it was a great success. Thanks, Jackie.
You're
Sorry.
welcome, Jake.
Director Block?
Yeah, thank you for your 30 years of service and for continuing to support the bargaining units. I did want to mention, I see that I think this is one of the ones where some of the funds are coming out of training funds and being shifted to salary. And the main comment I have is that I've heard that there's some newer requirements coming for the early learning staff. And I just want to make sure, you know, this is a big class. I just want to make sure that those staff are going to get appropriate support so that they are able to get that training and make sure that we preserve their spot in line, because they're often fairly low on the totem pole as far as seniority to be able to use those funds to make, or for the district to develop professional development and bring it in so that they get the training they need. They can keep doing that. Because I recognize that this is a group of staff that keep getting new expectations or requirements thrown at them. And I just want to make sure you're able to meet those. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay, so let's have the vote on the motion to approve the AISP collective bargaining agreement. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, I think the motion passes. So now we're going to go on to 5.3 on the agenda, which will be the sustainability plan approval. So who's going to be speaking to that?
I'm going to give Eva the pleasure of introducing the sustainability plan for approval.
Good afternoon, board directors. As you know, last spring, the board approved a sustainability policy, Policy 6811, charging the district with responsibility to develop a sustainability plan focused on 4 pillars: district resources, environmental safety, collective understanding, and student voice. This plan was developed collaboratively with significant student participation and leadership, along with several sustainability leaders and experts, both in our district and from the community. The plan was presented to you at the last board meeting on June 6th, and we respectfully seek your approval of the plan so we can move forward to start the ongoing process of a standing sustainability committee this fall and developing a procedure to accompany the policy 6811. Thank you.
Oh, go ahead, Carolyn, sorry.
I move to approve the sustainability plan.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, no worries. I'm still basking in the glow from that presentation 2 weeks ago. I don't have any questions. I still feel the way that it was presented with such student voice and agency and passion, and that articulate nature of those students. It was, their confidence blew me away. So I do fully support, and I know I'm probably premature in even saying that, but thank you for all of the hard work that everybody put in to not only the policy, but the creation of the plan. Thank you.
I'll just say that, I know that this board is constantly thinking about ways that we can be more energy efficient and reduce our carbon footprint. And this is just amazing. And I'm really looking forward to what is to come in the near future. Thank you.
That's all right. That's got it. Well, I want to say thank you to staff and also to all the students that were part of the whole process. I think when you think about mental health and all the challenges our students have, I think this process shows how imperative it is for us to empower our students and make them feel like they have a say in their future. And I think this is a way that we have shown our students and also create a pathway where they could engage and make a difference. So I appreciate everyone stepping forward and giving them that space and guiding them and creating this, I don't want to call it object, but this program to move forward. And I look forward to seeing more student voices heard and put into action. So thank you.
Yeah, this is great. I as a participant in the development of the plan, I appreciated all the effort that went into it. This is the end of one phase of this project and the beginning of another. Now we have the guidebook telling us where the community and our students and our administration wants us to go. And there's a lot of work that this plan calls for us to do. So that should be both exciting and terrifying at the same time, I think. I look forward to doing that with the district. And I think that a lot of the initial steps are studying some of these issues and doing better reporting so that we can have a good idea of where we are and where we need to get to meet these goals. So I really appreciate that. Look forward to working with you to move this forward.
So I think this is an amazing example of what the community can start to do as we pull together. Because it was a year or two ago, it was just sort of an idea a board member had that was Seema, and then she started working with one of the teachers over at Bellevue High, and then some kids got on board, and and then before we know it, we got a movement. So I'm looking forward to see what we can accomplish. Okay.
Can I just one thing I just want to add is that teacher, Mr. Litzenberger, is online right now listening. So I just want to shout him out.
Oh yeah, sure.
Because it takes teachers like that to just inspire kids. And he has just done that every year, and he's online listening. I know he's listening. I just want to say that we're just so thankful for teachers like him.
Yeah.
So
Okay, so that's everybody. So let me just say, all in favor of the motion to approve the Bellevue School District Sustainability Plan, let's say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. I'm not even calling
Thank
for no's
you.
because I keep hearing. Okay, so now we have some exciting topics. We are going to have, the next thing on the agenda is trying to approve Resolution 2024-07, the sale of the Somerset property. Not Somerset Elementary School, don't panic. Okay, so let's have staff members speak to that.
yes, I'll turn it over to Melissa DeVita, our Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Board. We are asking the Board this evening to approve the advertisement for the sale of the Somerset 2 property, which is a piece of property that is located on the backside of Somerset near Forest Drive. It is 10.1 acres. It has some very steep slopes and wetlands, making the site difficult to develop or challenging to develop an elementary school there. It is zoned R3.5, which means 3.5 houses per acre. We have been approached by a developer to see if we would be interested in selling this property. And the property currently does not have an address. It is wooded land right now. A public hearing was heard earlier today. There were no comments from the public. We did advertise this in the newspaper as required by law. And so we're just asking the Board to approve the advertisement of this property for sale. The Board cannot take a vote on the actual sale of the property for at least 45 days. And so the Board will have an opportunity to decide if they really do want to sell the property, depending upon what offers, if any, come for that land. And the last thing I'd like to say is the funds from this property sale will have to be developed in the capital fund. Unfortunately, we cannot use them in the general fund, which is where we are having our tight budget constraints at this time. But the capital fund is being used for student support, things like laptops and our tech support people and other things. So it will help relieve some of that tightness just in a different way. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Approve resolution number 2024-07. I'll move that because it's a mouthful, but we'll need a second.
Second.
Oh, my microphone was off. But anyway, I moved to approve resolution number 2024-07, and Director Block seconded it. And so now let's have some discussion. And since we started with Cindy last time, let's start off with Director Webster.
So I don't have any questions at this time. I think one of the main points that I wanted to bring up today was that we discussed on Monday was there was no need for this land use by the district in the foreseeable future. And so that was something that came up, and we feel like we got a clear answer on Monday about that. But other than that, I mean, it's fairly undeveloped. Director Block sent pictures of the land there, and it, yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you.
I do have one question. I think you've answered this, but just for the record, I'd like for you to answer it again. What is the rough estimate of the financial benefit that would gain by selling?
Well, we're currently having the property appraised, and we do not have that appraisal report. So it's hard for me to say, and since I'm not a realtor or a developer, but as soon as the appraisal comes in, I will definitely share that.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so Director Block.
Yeah, thank you. I did have a chance to visit the property, as Director Webster noted. Used the Juneteenth holiday on the first day of vacation for my kids to go out there and walk through it.
Sorry.
We do thrilling stuff at the Block household. It is a kind of second growth forested plot. There's no like old growth trees or anything there. There are a number of houses that are directly adjacent to it, who probably consider it part of their grander backyard today. There are probably a few lots that will have some view of Lake Washington and downtown. They're not really high quality view lots, but they'll be able to see over other houses and have some view. The site is very much rolling. It is not flat by any extreme, but it's very consistent with what you see on Somerset. It's very similar to that. The existing roads would not be suitable for access to a school or school type facility. It'd need massive modifications. There's no way you could run buses down that street. It's fairly steep to go down the street to the only access street to it's fairly steep. I anticipate that some of the neighbors may have opinions if this does end up moving to sale. I know that neighbors aren't necessarily excited to see their forested public land next to them developed. I do wonder if we've asked the city of Bellevue and their parks department if they are interested in acquiring it at the appraised value, or if we will do that step. I don't anticipate that they will, but that does seem like a question that we should ask them and include them in the marketing of the parcel, since it does abut some city land as well, and there's a city trail that's pretty close to it. Other than that, I don't have any questions. Oh, I do have one question. This parcel, I can't envision it being used to support education purposes. However, I do want to recognize that Somerset is one of our biggest and most full elementary schools, and that this will likely add students to Somerset. And I want us to at least think creatively if there are opportunities to either improve the transportation drop-off and pickup areas or the infrastructure at Somerset as part of this process, because it seems like it was intended for that region, and this is a region that's under some strain today. So.
Okay, wow. Thank you to Director Block for that report on the site. That's really more detailed than I expected. I am thinking that we could do some multiplication. We could take was it 10 acres and multiply it by the 3.5 per acre and multiply it by the factor that the demographer came up with for how many kids a house tends to generate, and we would have a number.
Yeah, and those I've got new data from him on how many kids houses are generating just because of the drop in birth rates. I just don't have that with me.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm happy to share that when I get a minute to look it up. And
yeah,
I don't want to provide false information.
Right, but I'm just thinking, homeowners in Bellevue seem far more tolerant of steep driveways than I would be. And it does make sense that they could deal with that better than dropping kids off of precipices on a steep piece of land for an elementary school. So I wanted you to add, what was that date that we first acquired the land? It's ages ago.
Yeah, we first acquired, we had 40 acres there in 1963. And then in the 70s, we sold off 30 acres.
So if it's been since 1963 that we haven't found a use for this piece of land, that's kind of indicative of how useful it's been to us. All right, let me pass it to Director Rogan.
What they said. I don't have anything else to add.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Webster? Oh, I already went. You already went. All right. Lost track of going around. All right, so let's just have the vote. So all in favor of, this is just the resolution to start listing it, or, yeah. So let's say all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, so we got that. We're gonna have to sign off on it in a little bit. All right, and then the next one is on a similar property vein. We want to talk about resolution number 2024-08. So let me just go ahead and move it and then do the talking. So I'm going to move that the Bellevue School District Board of Directors approves resolution number 2024-8 about acquiring a property at 1814 152nd Avenue Northeast, which is next to the transition facility. So let's start with some information from staff.
Do we need a second?
Oh yeah, need a second. Yeah, oh, we got the second. All right, some information from staff.
Thank you. So this is 2 parcels that is located right next to the transition facility that is currently under construction and is scheduled to open for next school year. These parcels are zone multifamily. So if they are sold to somebody else, we can anticipate some sort of multifamily housing unit being built on these parcels. However, we believe that the best use for these parcels would be an outdoor learning space for the transition center students to provide sensory stimulation, physical activity, motor skill development, and psychological and emotional well-being support, in addition to social interaction and other benefits. So we are recommending that the board approve the purchase of this land. The money for this will come from the bonds that were approved by voters in the 2020 election, and this is an acceptable use for those funds.
I think it's me. Okay, well, I have to say that this is around 2 for, I think, both Director Watson and myself hearing about this property, and I appreciate having it brought back to us at this point. I think about our part of our mission vision statement of each and every, and this just hits that each and every component, and we're thinking about our transition students and how important that they are in our district as well. And so I thank you for keeping at it and making sure that we're addressing this. I don't have any more questions.
I just want to, it's my first time, but this is the type of use that I think is really exciting for us to see an opportunity to enhance a planned facility, recognizing that transition students are doing a lot of vocational type training and a lot of learning how to engage with peers and whatnot, and providing them with such an opportunity, as well as I understand it will enhance the parking situation there, which is a persistent challenge at all of our campuses. So I think that both of those attributes make this really a great example of a good opportunity, and an opportunity that we're not going to have in the future if we pass this up.
So as part of being involved with the transitions graduation, I got to talk to the transitions program coordinator over there, and she was describing like the plans and all the things they could do and all this great stuff. So I think that's the thing. We need to see if we can get the land and create something great for the kids.
The possibilities sound really exciting. So thank you for this. And Melissa, thank you for reminding us about the funding as well, because there could be some questions with our budget issues. So thank you for reminding us about the 2020 bond, taking care of it. Thank you.
Yeah, I echo everyone else's sentiment that, I think that an outdoor learning space for the transitions program is exactly what we need in that area and for those students. And I'm just really excited. I get to talk to lots of parents, and they talk a lot about kids being in front of the screen, and not able to spend a lot of time outdoors. And I think that this is a really good opportunity for kids to explore and get creative and have that social interaction with each other. So I'm just really excited. Thank you.
Oh, she started.
Oh, yeah, I wrote it down, and I still can't. Never mind. All right, I can. I just lose focus. Okay, so now let's take the vote. All in favor of
Aye.
approving
Aye.
Aye.
resolution 2024-08.
Aye.
Aye.
Jumping the gun a little bit. All right. Okay, so I hope that pleases the facilities folks. And then we should go on to 5.6, policy 0130, equity and accountability revisions, first reading. And that will be John Harrison.
Thank you, President Watson. This is exciting because it's been quite some time since you've had a first reading of a policy. And this is proposed revisions to policy 0130, which is our equity and accountability policy, along with some proposed revisions to the procedure 0130P, same policy. This is such an important policy and such a great opportunity. And I really believe the proposed revisions are a huge step in the right direction. Good news, board, is that it's a first reading, so we're not asking for your action tonight, but would love to hear any additional feedback that you may have. And just for the record, I just want to outline the purpose of the proposed revisions, kind of twofold. First, the board about 3 years ago approved revisions to policy 0150, which is our policy that governs planning and progress monitoring and progress reporting. And in essence, what you did with those policy changes was to ensure that the work of the districts, the work on the progress towards the district's commitments to equity and accountability is monitored, and that the work of the district to address these commitments is incorporated into the annual plan of the district. So there was a disconnect between what it currently says in policy 0130 and what it says in policy 0150. The second reason is some great work, and I'm looking directly at Vice President Webster, and behind me, Director of Equity Shamari Jones, and a number of other people spent the better part of a year working on a process to really embed equity in all that we do, everything that we do, from classroom conversations to policies to budgets, to ensure that that we focus on equity as a way of being and as a way of doing. And so the current policy and current procedure reference the critical criteria. So in essence, the proposed revisions replace the previous critical criteria language with the language that is specific to the equity-driven decision-making process that the EDDM core team has been working on for about a year. So really excited to do that. And the first time I proposed these revisions to you, you asked me to get more feedback specifically from the equity-driven decision-making core team. I did that at the end of May. I presented those recommendations to you on Monday. So what I'm going to show you tonight includes obviously those recommendations from the equity-driven decision-making core team, but the additional feedback that you provided on Monday. So George, if you will, clean version of policy 0130. And that first, other than that weird slash after it commits to, that highlighted section in green is a preamble to the board's commitments. And Director Aris suggested the EDDM core team recommended pulling out and striking two of the board's commitments that I would say were powerful, aspirational language, but not what I would say is directly actionable language. And Director Aris's recommendation was to reinstate those two commitments. What I did instead, which I hope meets the purpose, was turn those two commitments into a paragraph that really describes the board's intent and aspirations. So the board commits to affirming, monitoring, and serving each and every student in our diverse community, especially students who have been marginalized or face significant barriers. The board is also committed through their governance and oversight to creating opportunities and removing barriers to identify and nurture strengths in each and every student to ensure our community can in turn be strengthened by each and every student. So the language of those two commitments turned into a preamble followed by actionable board commitments. And then the other bit of a theme here, the other revision I made since Monday was also at the suggestion of Director Aris. If you could scroll down, George, please, the next section in green. Keep going till we see green. Ah, there we go. It's one word, but it's pretty profound. That the heading for section B used to say inclusion and engagement. But if you read those two paragraphs, it doesn't really talk about engagement, but it does talk about access. So Director Aris wanted the inclusion of the word access. I felt that really what this section is about is inclusion and access, and it's not really about engagement. So I changed the title to inclusion and access. And those were the two changes to the policy. So I'm happy, President Watson, to hear any other feedback or answer any questions if there are questions.
Let's go around, and I think we're at starting with Director Block.
I don't think I have any additional comments on this. Just to clarify, my understanding is that this is not a comprehensive review of the policy and procedure. This is really just focused on changing from critical criteria to the EDDM as a process to inform the decision makers, primarily the superintendent.
Yeah, that's correct. So incorporate the EDDM process and ensure that policy 0150 and this policy are aligned around the reporting process.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I like that addition of the word access because it's no good just sitting there being included, but just sitting there without access. So that's good. And then I guess the thing about the big green paragraph that the board commits to, which is language that I think, we're not going to disagree with. But I was wondering, I think the EDDM had like some reason, you don't know what you don't know, but they had, I don't know what I don't know, but there was some reason why they had not had that paragraph or had taken that out. So I was wondering if we could maybe get some more feedback from them or that group on that, just in case, so we don't do something wrong. And also, I think we need a little wordsmithing because we've got each and every in the same sentence. So it's just doesn't have the great.
And that's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
And just, the EDDM actually recommended striking the two commitments because they felt that they weren't actionable commitments.
Right.
And then of course, the feedback on Monday was it's great language. So I kind of framed it as an intro or a preamble to the actionable commitments.
Okay.
But
Well,
we can certainly go back and check with you.
I'm flexible, but I just want to, run it
Sounds
by the
good.
people who are most involved.
Thank you for that.
So, I mean, Shamari, if you want to respond to that, you can, or Monica is also, I mean, they're here so they can talk about it if they want to. I think the other thing is the main reason for pulling it out of the kind of the bullets is because when you get to the procedure has accompanying outcomes. And so if you pull it and make it a preamble, then you don't have to try to find outcomes that the board's trying to meet. So that it made sense to me too.
Okay.
There were also things in there where the board commitments were ones in which we were seeing a history of the board not being able to actually achieve those particular commitments. And so we wanted to remove things that board members were unable to achieve and that students and families were calling us on. But the board said that they're going to do these things, and the board was not working towards doing these things. And so we struck those things to say if the board is not actually making an effort towards achieving these goals, we don't want to put them in a position where they are held accountable for achieving these goals.
Can I just get clarification on that? Sorry to go out of order. Was the board not achieving the goals because it was like not in our purview to achieve those goals, or because it wasn't a priority?
I would say there's a couple of pieces. And the first is the two commitments that we're just talking about were not really actionable commitments. The other part Shamari's talking about, you'll see in the marked up version, there was a section following the commitments that called for the board president to work with at least one other board member and do kind of an annual, summary of progress on your progress towards the commitments, and then a focus on what are the commitments, what commitments and goals, targets associated with the commitments is the board going to work on the next year. And that never really happened. And so we had this disconnect between practice and what it's stated in the policy. So that's what Shamari was referring to. That's been struck, and you can see that in the marked up version.
Yeah, just out of order first. That piece made me anxious, and I hope that we have some way of achieving something similar. Let me pass it to Director.
Nice job cleaning it up. My gosh, I think the board commitment is really inspirational. I think I just have to comment that the shift from that passive language under, it used to be provide ongoing board development and learning opportunities, and now it's participate. It's just much more active. There's much more depth and kind of grit to it, ownership. And I appreciated that. It felt like it just was very much aligned with our new strategic plan. Thank you.
Well, first, I'll just start by saying thank you, Dr. Armaki and John, for your willingness to engage the EDDM around this work. This was very much a collaboration with community and the district, and I think that we achieved that sentiment, by taking this information back to the EDDM core team, many of whom I think, except for one, was a part of this initial process, right? And so I was a part of that as well years ago. Really, I'm completely in alignment with what the EDDM proposed, the recommendations. We were very intentional about the reasons why we struck certain language from the commitments for the board, just because they were not actionable. And we wanted to make sure that we were able to accomplish whatever we indicate here. And so nice job explaining it, Mr. Jones, and thank you again for engaging the EDDM. Yep.
Thanks, John, for taking my asks and implementing it. I do believe that preamble needs to be there. Our job is to set the stage for the operational space to take it and run with it. And if you don't start with that vision in the policy work, we may drop the ball, and people may not understand why. We should be going a certain direction, but we go the opposite. I think the sentiment as having that there, and we could continue to take that sentiment and put it into policy in the various different ways to make sure that we're always in alignment. Regarding the word access, I appreciate that too, though I want to suggest one more. In the paragraph underneath inclusion and access, sorry, I would suggest the right after maximum, between maximum and extent, I wonder if you could put the word meaningful, because my thoughts on is that sometimes it's not the maximum, but it's meaningful learning opportunity because of where everyone's need is. Just a thought.
And just to clarify, line 131.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Microphone. That concludes discussion of the policy, and now we're going to go on to the procedure, I think.
Yeah,
yes.
The procedure is.
Oh, sure.
Sorry, before we move on to the procedure, just one couple comments. I just want to make two. One is just a thank you to the EDDM team. I mean, the work all year to embed equity into the decision-making process is so huge. And I think it gets to the spirit of the initial critical criteria that the team that worked on the policy came up with. This is like, how do we institutionalize equity? And so I think the EDDM team really took it to the next level. So I just wanted to say that. And then the second thing was, Director Aras and I have talked about kind of inclusion and access. And my one favor would be, I would love it to say inclusion and accessibility, because I think the word accessibility is kind of aspiring to
I like that.
making things accessible to kids. So it's basically the same word, but I like the noun better.
Yeah.
Because in different realms, it means like that we are, no matter what the need is, what the uniqueness is of the child, that we are going to make general education learning accessible to kids. So that would be my only ask. We didn't get to talk about that, but I love the word access, and that would be my ask. That's it. Thank you. Okay, on to the procedure.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Ramaki. So clean version of the procedure. And again, there were no changes from what you saw Monday, but I think it's important just to highlight a couple of things here for the record. That first paragraph, I think, is a really powerful paragraph, and it really, as to Dr. Aramaki's point about, it honors, I think, the work of the EDDM core team in developing this process. And I'd just like to read it because it's powerful. The EDDM process has been designed for broad application, and the intent is that the process and questions for the equity-driven decision-making serve as a guide for planning and decision-making in all contexts and settings. In accordance with Policy 0130, the district will ensure application of EDDM in the policy review, new policy development process, selection of curriculum materials, development of district-wide and program-specific plans, budgets, and decisions with a significant impact on the community must be documented. So that last sentence is original, with the exception of the significant impact on the community. So again, it's just a powerful statement that I think really honors the work of the EDDM, which rolls out in the next sections under process, starting on line 11. George, if you could scroll down, please.
Point of order. Just for clarification, this is a completely clean version. There's no green highlights to the areas where edits have happened.
That there are no green highlights. There are no changes from what you saw Monday, but just to for the record. So we'll do this really, really quickly. Keep scrolling. And there's the questions. That's all part of the process. Keep scrolling. And here's a little bit of what we're talking about, what Dr. Aramaki mentioned with, in the policy, it just provides the commitments. In the procedure, there's a long-term commitment for each of the, a long-term outcome for each of the commitments. And what you see in yellow actually were the recommendations from the equity-driven decision-making core team. At the bottom of this document or table, if you could scroll to the very bottom of the table, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Right here, the previous procedure, this is where it talked about what the board would do on an annual basis. And now it only talks about what the district will do with respect to codifying our commitments and the work on our commitments in the annual plan, and then reporting that to you on a regular basis. And then I think the one change I do want to highlight, I think, is an important one there. Line 56, new language recommended by the EDM is that the superintendent will assign a staff member for oversight for each of the district equity commitments to ensure that progress towards long-term outcomes are identified for each commitment. So just a sort of a quality control measure that Dr. Aramaki has somebody that's responsible on an ongoing basis of making sure that our commitments are reflected in the work that we do in the district. So I'll stop there. And again, Director Block is absolutely accurate. There are no changes to this since what you saw on Monday.
So we can start a discussion, and it looks like I would be the one who is up for it. And I'm just, I'm kind of like over here just feeling like I'm just going to apologize, because during the pandemic, Francine told me, you know, that blue paragraph that you struck out on the original, she said, you know, maybe you should put together whatever that is, the report or the whatever. And I remember sitting in my garden and just feeling overwhelmed and not getting it done. So I'm sorry, and I'm glad you took it out because I didn't know what I was doing. And it was the pandemic. I'll use that as an excuse. All right, let me pass it to Director Rogan.
I appreciate the highlighted areas, the shifts and changes. It's a meaty procedure, excuse me. And again, I feel like it's totally aligned with the new strategic plan. I'm really excited about seeing what comes of it. Thank you.
And I'm fully on board. Thank you.
I have a question. I thought when we looked at this on Monday on the procedure section, there was a section that was struck out, which was in relations to the preamble, which is now. And I'm looking at the same document, but I'm not seeing the section that was striked. Has that been removed?
The document you see tonight is exactly what you saw on.
Yes, so the aspirational language
Yeah.
that used to be the B and C are now in the preamble of the
Oh,
policy.
no, not that one, but in the procedure, there in the grid, there was a component that took the B and C and put it in the grid of responsibilities.
Yes, we took it out because they weren't actionable by the
Okay.
by the board. We moved it to the preamble so that we didn't have to have unactionable items. Yeah.
And the policy actually says that the procedure will include the commitments which are in the policy and the long-term outcomes. So the reason why, because it's kind of odd that the commitments are in both the policy and the procedure, reason being commitments in the policy, in the procedure, the long-term outcomes. So that's the difference.
Okay, I'm just trying to question from different perspectives. It is easier for us who've been part of this process, whether in this chair or outside of the chair, and seeing this movement of the equity policy, and we know the ins and outs of it. But as many of us leave these seats and new people come in, I want to make sure that whatever they read, they have the same sentiment as we do with that, although with that being here, and want to make sure that we're not unintentionally removing something that would hold the board accountable for the work that we should be doing.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, I had the comment on Monday, and I still feel this way about the procedure. But I think that this probably needs to stay until there's a more thorough review of the procedure, where it feels like it's the board and district doing all these actions, and the people who are affected, the students and the families, are kind of receivers of those actions and not necessarily participants. So that's one comment I have here. And just the whole way I read through it, I get that feeling. The other thing is that I want to emphasize that while we seem to be removing a board reporting on equity, that we're retaining that expectation. We're just shifting it to the district is doing that moving forward, and the board is kind of reviewing and accepting that reporting. As a team of 5, we're not necessarily the best at writing reports. And
we used to be.
I think the district has access to the data and the resources to do that more efficiently than we do. And I appreciate that shift in responsibility, but retaining the oversight role for the board.
And that's why I included that very specific language in the preamble to the board's commitments about through your governance and oversight role. So it's codified.
Yeah, well, I sure
Thank you.
appreciate that. All right. So I think that's everybody for this one. So
May I just conclude with like next steps? So this was first reading. So in your weekly update tomorrow, I'll provide live doc so you can continue if you've got additional feedback to get that to me between now and second reading, which is scheduled for July the 25th. And in case you're wondering about the procedure, because it's your procedure, it's in the 1,000 series, it does need your approval. So on July 25th, I'll be asking for your approval of the second reading version of the policy and the procedure at that time. Thank you, board.
Yeah, thank you. So now we're ready for our favorite moment, director discussion. And since you've drum rolled, it's also, you get to go first. Director Rogan.
It was my enthusiastic drum roll. Thank you.
Well, no, actually, it just came up on the.
I
rolling,
know,
but yeah.
I know. It's the die. I just have to give a big shout out to Dr. Aramaki. 7 graduations, and how many hands were shaken? 8 graduations, 1,800 hands shaken. I attended the Bellevue High School graduation, and it was so inspiring and just a kick on so many levels. And the joy at the end was, I wasn't anticipating that because, you know, it's so formal throughout the whole ceremony, and then all of a sudden it's like they were all uncorked. It was lovely, a thing of beauty, and I'm so grateful for Dr. Aramaki's social media activity, because I felt like I was there at all of the other ones. You took so many great pictures, so many moments with families and graduates, and you just captured that culminating exuberance times 8. I think I'm still getting them, actually. So
Thanks.
thank
It's
you
my
for that.
communications team. I only do the short, weird videos, but the communications team does all the beautiful
Okay.
photos.
Shout out to Janine and team. It really was, has been exceptional. PTSA Council, I'm curious about your superintendent report, the anxious generation. Are we going to get a copy of that through the board? Does the board?
Sure.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Talk about putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Thank you. And then I also understand that, speaking of another book, we have an author coming to the Leadership Institute, Shane Saphir. And there's going to be a bit of a book study around the listening leader. And do you all have that book, The Listening Leader? Because if we can all go to the Leadership Institute together and
Yeah, we can.
right on that Tuesday, Shane Saphir is going to be there. It would be amazing if we could have that book and be ready to fire some questions and wow her with our intellect and engagement. Summer
I
reading.
don't know about that, but.
Summer reading. Here we go. Buckle up.
All right.
Okay. And also wanted to mention the PTSA Council ceremony. It really was lovely. Jane and Carolyn and I were there. Kelly got recognized with an award as a friend of the PTSA Council. And just, again, the celebration with the students that received scholarships. The Alice Hurd Memorial Scholarship with her husband being there was just very touching. So good work, PTSA Council. And a big shout out to Emily Castle, who's been president for many years. And
3 years.
3 years.
You're supposed to only be 2, but they couldn't find anyone.
Right. And now she's vice president,
Yeah.
but still just a huge force of a woman. Just wanted to make sure I publicly acknowledged her service. She's amazing. I think that's, I did want to give a shout out regarding something I heard through the grapevine, this idea of our PAC-B, the budget process, everybody's working on cutting the budget. And somebody told me recently, and I can't remember who, that we've decreased central office administrators by 10 people over the past 3 years. And I think that is so responsible of us. When you think about, our role as being governance and oversight, when you hear 10 positions.
We need to
over
say that.
3 years, yeah, that's something to really celebrate. And I know there's an impact on the people who are remaining there. Those roles and responsibilities don't just go poof. They're delegated, right? So it's an impact and it's a trickle down impact. But I think it's important that the community understand that there's been a progressive process of being responsible fiscally. And I think I just really wanted to value that. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So now it's Director Webster's turn.
So
Hello, everybody. Yesterday, I celebrated Juneteenth with lots of friends and families, and I bounced from event to event. And it was just really nice, just celebrating Black folks and having engaging conversations, meeting new people, making new connections. People had lots of ideas around how we can better support our Black students in our district. And so I'm just looking forward to engaging in more conversations with our families and our new friends across the water who are sending their kids here. So that was worth sharing with you all. Got a chance to attend the Sammamish and Interlake graduations, which were absolutely phenomenal. It was just so lovely to see so many kids, you know, who I consider family even, right, that, you know, walk across the stage, you know, and receive their diplomas. I mean, they were so proud of themselves, and their families are really proud of themselves too, of them as well. And it was just so nice to see them receive those. And I also wanted to say congratulations to all of our students, right, who graduated, because we didn't get to go to all of the graduations, but I just wanted to congratulate all of our graduates. As you mentioned, we went to the PTSA dinner where we were celebrating some of our students who got awards, and Dr. Almaki got an award as well, and scholarships. And so just wanted to thank the PTSA for all of their support and advocacy as well. We talked a lot about legislative advocacy and wanting to be involved in that process in the upcoming year. So that's very exciting. And then last thing, just wanted to give a shout out to the EDDM team who's worked so hard over the past year on this work. I mean, so many hours, you know, folks have dedicated to making sure that we're intentional about embedding equity in all of that we do here in the district. And they're just so passionate, you know, and I just appreciate their time, their energy, their brain power. I mean, we laughed, we cried, we yelled, you know, we had it all in there. And it's just a phenomenal group of really brilliant individuals in our community. And so I just wanted to shout them out and hopefully see them all back in the fall. That's it. Thanks.
I want to shout out for PTSA Council as well. I didn't get to stay the whole duration because I had to run out to a high school graduation, Issaquah High School graduation for a family or a girl who was like a daughter to me. But it was so lovely to be part of that and have our parents still be involved and keep pushing forward in that space. I had the joy of being part of the Newport and Big Picture, and I'm going to say it again, it's hard to follow a good speaker. And I hope someone captured the teacher speaker, and that at Big Picture, that was just phenomenal. And hope that we could share that with the rest of the community. There's a couple of things I wanted to bring up during my time here is that with the sustainability policy and now the plan, I wonder if it's time for us to really engage in bringing students onto the student board process, if it's kind of work on that a little bit faster, because I was thinking, you know, one of the things I thought about is in the 1-5 and the 10-year plan, and including like the meals, they could have some serious impact if they come along with, you know, the LES rep to DC, because we go and talk to FDA. And our Washington's the only one that does it, and we've had some pretty significant success. And this would give them an opportunity to be part of that. The another thing my son was telling me about this as I was sharing about the sustainability plan is he showed me a video about, I think it's in Portland, where a PE teacher goes and rides his bike and picks up kids. It's called the bike bus. I thought, it's like, what a great move. I wonder if that's something, I don't know, some schools would like to champion. It's beautiful to see, because you literally see a teacher riding his bike, and all these students just join. And it just becomes this massive group of students. And you have parents standing with their children at the curb, waiting for the bus to come by, and the kids just join with their bike. It's the safest way for them to all kind of go. So I guess as the plan is being rolled out, I was thinking of all these ideas. So a couple of other things. I know we talked about, and we postponed a meeting with City Council joining us. I'm wondering when that will be, and have we gotten any feedback, John, as far as from them when, what time frame that would work for them, and also, and I brought this up before. Given our numbers, and Kelly has shared with us before how we have our numbers start small, but in middle school and high school we pick up more kids. But in Seattle School District, their numbers start big and they lose in middle school and high school. But they also have universal preschool sponsored by the city. And I wonder if this is something that we as a board could maybe push and champion, because if there's plenty of research that says that if preschool there's a correlation between preschool opportunity and success, and as well as when we talk about closing gap, it's one of the first places we could close gap. And with the economic disparity really stratifying, getting wider, this is a way we could just level the plane. Just a thought. I would love to hear all of your thoughts on this. That's it. Anyone wanted to give me I got 22 seconds on mine. Anyone have any strong feelings on this?
Just the funding piece of it, right? I mean, I think that I agree with you. I like the idea of universal preschool, but it's the funding piece that I'd like to kind of make sure that we are thoughtful about.
Yeah, that is, I think the Seattle School District or and the city, they do it through a levy. And so it is basically the whole, the city commitment. So I look at it, that jar, you pass it around, everybody puts in 10 cents. Now you could make sure that everybody gets to have preschool access. With preschool becoming more and more expensive, it just really becomes haves and have-nots.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking about when they cut our Head Start funding. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what everyone said. It was wonderful to celebrate our graduates. I had the chance to be on stage with the international school graduates, and it was a class where I had actually been in the classroom with almost all of them. That was one of the opportunities I had. I taught in the biology and AP environmental science class to do one session on conservation planning and to help them with that. And some of them reminded me of that when we went to grad night, because I not only did graduation, I then got to spend all night
Oh no!
with those graduates
Oh no!
From 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And I'll just say that I don't bounce back from that quite like a teenager. So I was a little out of sorts on the weekend. I do want to, shifting gears, I do want to recognize that there continue to be fundraising opportunities for the school district, that the Bellevue Schools Foundation is looking not just for people who have money, but also people who can help us talk to people who might be willing to support the district and to build the plans and the requests for future efforts. It's not just people who have money that the Bellevue Schools Foundation needs. It's also people who are willing to have the conversation with others about opportunities to support the school district. And that's going to continue to be one of the important ways that we can differentiate ourselves as a district from other school districts, is to solicit and receive that sort of unrestricted funding, which gives the school district and Director Aramaki some more flexibility to preserve the tools and also to provide innovation. I do want to, as I reflect on my students, I know this is a sometimes overly personal situations aren't good examples, but I have seen in my situation, and I've seen this reflected in others, that math education continues to be a challenge, and that in part it's a challenge of recruiting and retaining great math teachers. We face a more competitive landscape for math teachers than for some other disciplines because they have marketable skills for other sorts of jobs often. And beyond that, there's this incremental building of education for math. And so any missed opportunity to build that foundation will come back and hurt those students and create challenges. And we see that there's also been some shifts towards digital education in math, a lot more computer lessons, and that has trained at least one of my students to do what I call guess and check, which does not lead to them learning the information and does not serve them well when they get to examinations. They basically understand it, but they understand it from a level of, well, it's one of these three options. I'll just try three options and wait and see which one the computer tells me is right. You know, my personal perspective, I'm old school. I like paper. I like showing your work. And it's really important. You know, I think math is one of those critical disciplines that really supports all of the STEM disciplines, and seeing if there's not more we can do there is important. I also I missed one of my notes here. I take notes and I don't even read them all. Going back to the graduation celebrations, I just wanted to point out that our Running Start students are lost from us when it gets to those graduation celebrations. And they're with us for the first 10 years, and the last 2 years, we never get to celebrate them. And I want to recognize that those students who've been part of the district and that they are an important part of our district, and to celebrate them as well as they move on to what's next. I also wanted to acknowledge one of the things that's going to be down here on the information only, which is the changes in school meal prices, and that we had a great discussion of that. And it's remarkable to hear, while prices are going up a little bit for these, about a quarter for most of the meals, not breakfast. It's remarkable to hear the hard work that the district and the nutrition services group has done to constrain those prices increases. And we're dealing with an extremely competitive environment for those employees, where we're competing against all the fast food restaurants and whatnot to retain and keep those. So really appreciate that hard work, and I'm sure the families appreciate that cost control as well.
Yeah, well, I've got a lot of thoughts all over the place. About the math, in my experience, the students used to form groups and then call each other and like do the guess and check, but in group form. Oh, okay, because they get marked for the wrong answers. So anyway, you could switch off and you could avoid the whole thing. So yes, perhaps that is something to look into. I think a lot of us did the same things this week or this last 2 weeks, the graduations. So I just want to call out a few things that are a little different, because I did digital discovery, which is right in here. And it wasn't, it's like 10 kids. It's not too many kids, but it was fascinating. First of all, I got to meet the teacher. I mean, and she is just really impressive. But it was also interesting to see kids who are actually meeting each other. Some of them, I got the idea in person for the first time after knowing each other online. And so it's something that serves some kids that we weren't otherwise able to serve. So it was a privilege to be a part of that. And then also the transitions graduation, like I don't want to surrender that. To let anybody else have a turn. They are just such a nice, warm and welcoming group. And when you talk about, getting to know the students, they do a slide, for each kid. I've seen that at International used to do that at the baccalaureate. Maybe they still do. It is a lovely ceremony, but they folded into the graduation at at transitions. And so you get to see like what the strengths are of each kid and what they've been up to and what their plans are. And so that's just, it's just a very warm and friendly event. And then, yeah, it was interesting that Dr. Aramaki reports on his adventures with the council and doesn't mention that they gave him the Friend of Council Award, which, you know, they have a couple of set awards they can give every year. And, you know, it's a big deal when they decide to give it to you. So that's good. And I also have some thoughts, I guess is what you put them. They're not just thoughts. So this is a thought that comes from the Computer Science Teachers Association, and it was just struck me because one of their things was that equity is not pie charts. Because I guess you get a lot of computer science teachers that, you know, retool from having worked in industry and stuff, and they said, in education, you cannot think of equity the way you do in a corporation. You cannot like just draw like a pie chart and say, well, I have so many kids from this group and so many kids from this group and so many kids from this group and think you've done it. So they suggested that a thing to look at was, do the siblings of that kid come back for more computer science? Do the friends of that kid come back for more computer science? You know, you could, and I don't know how you do that in a big comprehensive high school. You could ask the kids, would you recommend this to your friend or your sibling? You could ask them that. But, you know, the proof is sort of in the pudding. If the kids are getting other kids to show up, then maybe you've really accomplished something where you're making the place actually feel welcoming. So that was a thought that that I encountered. So I thought I would share that out. And then another thought, Jonathan Haidt, his book, he is everywhere. He is like on every podcast and talk show that you can imagine, and they run the full range of like almost the political spectrum. Sorry, no, I thought maybe I'm hitting him. I didn't mean that, but you know, I heard a conservative house, liberal house, just the whole range. So you can hear him pretty easily. I think he just punched his name into some podcast app, but I listened to a couple of them. And one thing I took away was one of the reasons he thinks that cell phones may be so damaging to our students is that you get this impression that you're socially connecting with people, but you aren't. You connect in person or even online when it's one-on-one, there's a give and take and you're having a connection. As soon as you're in a group chat, it turns to performance. You're worried about what the other people are going to think about you, and it adds all that stress that you get on social media. So that's one of my takeaways from him. And the other big takeaway is, unlike the other things where we say it's just a scare, you know, they used to be scared about comic books, they were scared about novels, they were scared about video games. The thing that's different about this is that if you actually ask the kids, they wish the cell phones didn't exist. But you can't, as an individual, get rid of your cell phone. Has to be the whole group, otherwise you're afraid you're missing everything. So those are some things that I've been thinking about in the last 2 weeks. All right, so let's see. That's it. We've all had our turns. All right, so we don't adjourn because we're going back into executive session for a few more minutes. So right now we're going into executive session for a few minutes, and we're going to come out and we may have a little vote on something. So
Maybe 10 minutes?
yeah, I don't know. I don't think 10 minutes because we have to do the whole. What?
30 minutes is what she said.
30 minutes. Okay. So we will be checking back in with everybody in 30 minutes. Okay.
Nice job, everybody.
Yeah. What? Might be.
Well, you're 10 minutes ahead of the regular board.
Right. So I guess we need to just go to the other room.
Do we all come back or just one person?
I think we all come back because we have to do a vote in public.
We have to like sign it.
Let's see. We'll bring our lawyer and our dog. Yeah.
Okay.
John, I'm not going to stick around.
Okay,
I'll
fine.
leave you all in the
Yeah, go,
capable
go.
hands of Shannon McMillan.
Okay.
It's not like it's 79 degrees outside and sunny.
I have to sign all these papers, but I'll do that later.
I was thinking about you. I was hoping that I couldn't stay up all night. I'm like, there's no way.
I was fine until like 4 o'clock the next afternoon. Basically, Friday.
We're done, right?
So, not
I